Okay, so guess what it is this morning?
What is it this morning?
Okay, so we're not live on X.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So I think I may end up having it. Your mic is really low.
Yeah, I gotta.
You may have to get out of that program you were doing to try to get Colin.
How about that? Is that better?
Much. Yes. Right. I was like, please don't make me feel like I'm getting deafer. Okay, so I may have to let you get going with Senator Bullard, and I may have to go reset up our X stream because so guess what happened? So I logged into X to post something yesterday, and a little blurb came up, and it said your premium subscription needs to be renewed. Okay, and I was like, but it went up double. And so I was like,
well, Elon's raising prices on you, is that right?
Oh, double. So I was sitting there going, so it went from $160 to $350 or something. I mean, it was not a small thing. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, look, it's $60. Oh, that hurts. This was like they were going to charge us double. And so I'm like, I'm busy. I'm in the middle of something and I'll get back to it later. Well, so then they just shut us off.
Wow.
So X is now like the water department. You don't pay your bill, they just shut you down. So that's where we are. So my nachos is already on this morning. He likes the funky intro music, so that's good. And Earl's daughter has already said thanks for the link. She just printed out the bill. And I did, guys. I put the bill link in the comments. So print it out. I mean, let's not have a discussion with Senator Bullard where everybody's going, well, don't think. Look at the bill and I'll pull it in.
Do.
I mean,
don't think, do. Take action.
That's right. So I hate to do this without us being up on X. So I don't know. Do you want to start and I'll go run and see if I can't get us back up, or what do you want to do?
It doesn't. X has an archive, doesn't it? So if you get on, it'll be on there for the future, correct?
I think, I don't know how long they archive it because it's kind of they've started doing the same thing as Facebook. So they do a rolling archive. So your stuff will be up for 30 days and then they roll it off, which is fine with me because we don't want data centers. So I'm fine with that. Roll it off.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, and our friend at Orca is on and he says there's a link to his document showing that how 1027 affects our current SQ 37. Well, we can look at that, and I will pull that up. So I'm going to go. Let's introduce Senator Bullard, and I'll pull the bill in, and let's get going, and I'll go see if I can't get us up on access. But then I think I can get back in so I can talk while I'm fixing it. But I have to go down and get all the keys to the kingdom. So it's like, and Orca says, good morning, everybody. Okay, so we're going to bring in our good senator who is in his car. Are you living there now, Senator?
Yeah, this is the cheapest place I could find.
You know, is it a van? And then you can say, I live in a van down by the river.
I'm not down by a river, more's the pity. I'm in Norman, so it's a little different here.
Ew, yeah, there's probably not much to see. Okay, so you heard of our travails with Axe, and really we have a huge audience on Axe, so they're going to miss this whole thing if I don't get out of here and get that fixed. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in the bill so that we've got a chance to have that, because I do want to make sure that we're talking about the actual thing and not what people think, because you know that happens a lot. So here's the bill.
Yep.
Hey, Michael, can you, here, I can make it bigger. Never mind. Can we see it better now?
I can't do it if you pull it in.
Okay, well, hold on. Oh, you can't do anything to it if I pull it in, so you can't like scroll?
Well, you probably shared your screen and not.
Oh, I did.
You probably didn't put it in as a slide or, what.
No, I didn't. So do you want, I'll back this out. Do you want to bring up pull in your screen?
Yeah, but I'm not on social media, so I don't have that link. So you have to email me that link and then I'll pull it in there.
Okay, perfect. Give me 1 second and I will do that. So how are you this morning, Senator?
I'm doing good. Fixing to be home here in a little bit, back with my girls, and life gets better when I'm at home.
Yeah. How about the fishing this year?
I've only been once and got skunked by my daughter, who is yet to not let me live that part down. She caught 3 fish and I caught 0. And when I get home today, she's going to remind me that I didn't catch a single fish. So I've raised good kids.
See, I would too.
Yeah, she's not going to let that one go down without telling me where I am.
Pretty funny. What did you catch?
Well, we were trying for crappie.
Trying to catch?
Yeah, we were trying for crappie. I love crappie, especially eating crappie, but we only caught one, and she caught catfish, which I like catfish anyways. Yeah. And so it was good. It was, we had enough for make a little bit of a mess, and we'll go find them later. My problem is I don't have much time to go get on the water and spin on the water. It makes it tough.
Yeah. So you and I and Michael were at the Boots and Bling GOP event last night, and we interviewed you last night too.
Yeah. Lucky you. You get to interview me twice, I guess.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. So to kind of get us started, did you get the link, Michael?
Yeah. I got to get it off my phone.
I sent an email.
Yeah, that email's not. I'm at the office.
Oh, sorry. Sorry for the technical problems this morning.
That's the one thing I always do is if you needed technology to work right, it never will.
Well, and it's so funny because it's a live show. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen while people are watching because we're a live show. But I'm pretty sure there are people on X going, how come I can't see that interview?
Yeah. Well, I'm one of those that I'm resisting social media as much as I can. Matter of fact, I got a new phone and it's locked me out of my Facebook account. So I've been out of Facebook for about a week. And if you'll notice, my shoulders are a little bit more relaxed, and I'm not hurting without Facebook. I'm not hurting without social media, and I very seldom go to X. So,
it's kind of a blessing and a curse. I mean, with us, it's a really great way for us to get out, the content and stuff like what we're going to talk about today. But you're right. I mean, sometimes it's just a circular nightmare. I mean, it just is. And so many people want to argue. They don't want to really listen or learn. It's just more about, well, this is my opinion. I don't care what you have to say. And so then you get into that and, you've wasted a bunch of time trying to argue with some, person who doesn't really care.
It's a lot of why I've quit arguing on Facebook, because it doesn't do any good. You're not going to convince them. And what they're looking for is their one-liner that they can twist.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do much good. If you want to argue with me, let's go have a cup of coffee, and when we're done, we'll still be friends. But Facebook, I am convinced that Facebook is the devil's playground, and I think it has become the stain on our society, and it's having massive effects on our kids. We have been very cautious with our girls on letting them get on social media, just because if you're going to get bullied or picked on, if the devil's going to come at you, that's going to be the first place the devil comes at you. And that's,
well, I remember what ended up happening initially. Don't feed the Facebook trolls. I remember what initially happened was Facebook was kind of listed as the reason why so many marriages broke up, because there were people, finding their old flames on Facebook. And, so I agree. I mean, I think, thank you, Catherine. I appreciate that. Catherine shared to X that we're live here, but I will go ahead and get it done here in just a second. So let's start with the bill now that we've got it up.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about this last night, but for people who didn't happen to see that. So why did you decide to run this bill?
Well, I campaigned on going back in and fixing the initiative petition process, because we could see what was coming down the pike. And really what the kicker for a lot of us was that State Question 805, which expanded Medicaid to 138% of the poverty rate.
Yeah.
We knew that was a disaster. And we knew that was being funded. As a matter of fact, we had a senator at the time that 805 was run who called the Kaiser Foundation. Apparently he knew somebody with the Kaiser Foundation and said, y'all don't normally run things that don't pass. Is this fixing to pass? And they said, yeah, no, it's going to pass. We know how to do this stuff. So it was all coming out of state. All the money was coming out of state. And now the problem is, for people who don't understand, we expanded Medicaid to 138% of the poverty rate. That means we put even more people who are able-bodied, able-minded on Medicaid. And this year, you have to understand, the federal government cannot maintain almost $37 trillion in debt. That's unsustainable. Either the dollar's going to collapse or they're going to get their act together. So they have to start making cuts. Well, what's the largest line item they have to cut? It's not the military. That's less than 6% of their budget. So they need to go after Medicaid. They have to go after Medicaid, because I think somebody told me once here recently that some 60% of the population on Medicaid are able-bodied, able-minded people. So Medicaid has to become universal health care. And so what we're getting at is we're going to eventually have to take up more of that bill, because they sold 805 as a 90-10 match. Well, it's not going to stay 90-10. We know this about the federal government. They have the attention span of a kindergartner. And so they're going to eventually say, well, we've changed our mind on the 90-10, which is what they're doing. And that's why we were saying, don't take it. It's not free money. There's change attached to it. And here we're fixing to be on the hook for another $1 billion. Potentially, we got to figure out where to do and where to get that money. And now we know that, like the I think it's 836, the one on the blanket primaries, and we need to change our vocabulary on that. That is not an open primary the way that is written. That is a blanket primary, which is patently unconstitutional and has been declared that for a long time. So we know that these kinds of things are coming in. And the really big kicker for me is I'm very strong right to life. I've quit even using the term pro-life anymore. It's not just that I'm opposed to abortion. It's that there is a right to life in the Constitution, and I intend fully to fight it and end abortion in whatever ways that I can. Well, we know for a fact, they've already told us that there is a bill coming that they're gonna circulate through to make abortion on demand anytime by anyone for any reason anywhere. And so you can't just sit still any longer. We had to do something to put some guardrails on it, so that if it's something that passes, it's truly by the people of Oklahoma, not some out-of-state entity coming here and shoving liberal stuff down our throats.
Yeah. Wow. Well, just just something I want to ask about that abortion kind of on demand. So if the medical age in Oklahoma for consent is what, 14, I guess. So
Yeah.
can a kid that's 14 or 15 just go get an abortion like that if that legislation goes through?
Yes. Yeah. The way that they're
Wow.
now, we haven't seen the language on it just yet, but we know what they're pushing and how they push it in other states. So the answer would still be yes. They want abortion on demand. That they just want universal abortion anywhere in the state, and it's coming. And but if they can only go and only have to go to 2 or 3 counties to get those signatures, they're going to get that on the ballot. But now with this law, what you're going to see is they'll have to go out to about 18 to 20 different counties. Just kind of depends on what counties they go to. And so what we were trying to do and what we've done successfully is we forced them out of 2 or 3 counties, and we forced them to get out to at least 20 counties to be able to get their signatures.
So with 1027, that will ultimately affect all those other initiatives like that.
Yeah, and there's more coming down the pike, guys. I mean, that's not just it. There's going to be a lot of stuff against law enforcement. There's going to be a lot of things coming down the pike that we're going to have to deal with if we don't get a handle on this process. Because we kind of said this last night, so I'll repeat myself a little bit. But I can always tell when I've hit the liberal nerve, and I hit the liberal nerve on this one. When we banned critical race theory, I knew I could tell I had hit the liberal nerve because they went completely. They lost their minds. When I banned boys from going into girls' locker rooms and changing rooms, they lost their mind. When I filed the Millstone Act to stop them from doing the transgender surgeries up to the age of 25, the liberals lost their mind, and they did on this one too. I mean, the liberals I could tell I cut their playbook off whenever I ran this bill, because this is how they take Oklahoma, is through that initiative petition process that we have.
Okay, so let's explain, because I've been listening to what you've been saying. So let's explain how it is that they were doing that, because it's very clear. If you look at the bill, if you can scroll through, the bill, Michael.
You want to bring it back up on your side so you can go right to what you're talking about?
Okay, well, I can do that. Sure.
Well, and we can even kind of walk people through it if you like.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, because
go ahead. Go ahead, Senator.
Well, it's just like if you'll go to page 3, if anybody's looking at it, we laid out kind of what the gist is. So what people need to understand, there's a difference between title and gist. The gist is the part of it that when they're trying to get the signatures, they have to give you a gist that says this is what the bill does. Now, if they're from the Kaiser Foundation and they're out of state, or if they're an abortion industry and they're out of state or even in state, how honest do you think they're going to be when they're trying to tell you what the bill does? They're going to say, well, this is about women's health care. You just need to sign this to help women out. Well, so what we did was, if you start on page 3, we came back and put guardrails on what they have to put in the gist. It has to be honest. They have to use basic words that have general usage. They can't use jargon or vernacular. It can't have euphemisms in it. It has to tell them how much money it's going to cost. Just things like that. In other words, what we're doing in those sections 1 through 5 is we're saying, look, you have to be honest on the gist when you're trying to get my signature to say this is how this is the bill we want to put on for a state question. We're just saying, look, you got to be honest about it. You've got to use particular types of verbiage, and there's nothing wrong with requiring people to do that. You want someone, if they're going to gather signatures, to be required to be honest. And we put that through the Secretary of State, and we said, listen, the Secretary of State is the one who's going to look at this and says, no, you're purposefully trying to trick the people. Go back and rewrite it and make your gist honest. And that's what it is. So the Secretary of State has the authority to accept or reject. If he rejects, they can go back and rewrite it in an honest way until they get it where they want it. But why in the world, and I asked this question on the floor, why in the world would we be okay with somebody trying to get an initiative petition on the ballot using lies and euphemisms and those kinds of things? That's not okay. If you want my signature, there ought to be a requirement that it has to be honest and done forthright in those kinds of ways. And so that's
one
what
of the
we were trying to
guys,
do.
the guy on one of the guys on Rumble this morning says we should forbid more than one negative in a gist, because I do think that's why I really like what you said, because how many times have we had that thing where it's like a double negative, and really a double negative is like a positive, and it just confuses everybody, and they're like, well, so is it for or against? What am I voting for?
Right. I remember, you may remember this, Jenny, but you remember I was part of that movement to remove the Blaine Amendment out of our U.S. Constitution.
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of people that I talked to said, David, we were all for removing the Blaine Amendment so that we could put the 10 Commandments back on the Capitol lawn. But they said we didn't know what we were voting for. It was so confusing the way they wrote that. We thought that by voting no, we were actually voting in favor of putting the 10 Commandments back on the lawn. So it's the same way here. And it's not a bad idea what that suggestion was. Because really, it ought to be about just what the language of the bill is actually going to do. But just as an example, with the right to life stuff, what they're going to do on the pro-choice side is they're going to say, oh, this is about saving, countless women's lives. Well, we know for a fact that abortion is the only medical procedure that the success of the procedure is based on whether the patient dies. That's an abortion. So it's not saving lives, it's destroying lives. And we also know what it does to the psychology of women. It destroys their mental well-being, especially once they realize what they've done or come to grips with what they've done. So, we want people to be honest on that gist when they're trying to get your signature. And that's what that section does.
Well, and number 4, not reflect partiality in its composition or contain any argument for or against the measure. How could you argue with that?
Right. All we want you to do is tell us what the bill actually does, what it is that you're proposing, and that's a very, very big deal. Number 5, I think maybe one of the bigger parts of it, number 5 was a very important thing for me, because it says that they have to indicate whether the proposed measure will have a fiscal impact. If you would have told people that State Question 805 was going to cost the Oklahoma taxpayer billions upon billions of dollars to put able-bodied, able-minded people on Medicaid, they'd have blown that thing out of the water and shot it back to where it came from. But it wasn't. That wasn't how they proposed it. That wasn't how they did the gist on that. They did it to sneak it past people. And they play on people's emotions because, a lot of what I've noticed the difference between a liberal and a conservative, a liberal uses their emotions to determine how they believe about something, either factual or not factual. Right. A conservative uses facts to interpret how they should think and believe on and feel about an issue. And that's the biggest difference between them. And they know how to play on the emotions of people for anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And so, they're going to play on those kinds of things. Well, the taxpayers don't want more taxes. I can promise you that. The taxpayers, even the liberals that are out there screaming their heads off, that somehow the rich ought to be paying more of their fair share, which I can get into the data on that one if you like. The rich ought to be paying more of their fair share. They're playing on an emotion, not a fact. The fact is that the top 25% wage earners in this country are responsible for paying 87% of all the taxes for the entire country. That's a fact, which tells me their emotional argument is a lie. They're going to do the same thing on all this other stuff. So we need them to tell them if you're going to get my signature, give me the facts, lay it out. And this is very, very important to how we shut these kinds of things down. Because even if they go out to 20 counties and they say, this is what we want, and they're honest about it, they're going to have a hard time getting it done unless it's something the people of Oklahoma really want to do. And so it's a big part of that guardrail.
So let me go back up to a question that we've had. And guys, I'll try to get all your comments in later, but I'm trying to hit questions right now. Sure. What happens when the petition is submitted and it doesn't meet the criteria? For example, like it has a double negative. Does the governor get to reject it? What are the guardrails that, because, you know, we talked about this last night too, Senator, about the fact that our judicial system isn't protecting us. They just go, whatever, you broke the law, and move on. So what guardrails are in the bill to prevent them from doing these things should somebody come forward and say, no, this is wrong?
Well, so I think there's a couple of questions in that one that you just asked. On the question that just popped up, I saw it for just a second. Yes, the Secretary of State would have that ability to say, no, this doesn't meet state law. Then they send it back to them. They can rewrite it and resubmit it, which is what they'll do. And probably what they'll do is come back to the Secretary of State and say, okay, what are the problems that you had with it that we need to fix or whatever, if they're being honest. If they're not an honest broker in the whole deal, they're going to come back and try and continue to trick the Secretary of State, just like they're trying to trick the Oklahoma voter. On your other point, you know, is there somebody, I mean, it's going to be up to the Secretary of State and the governor's office to determine, is this honest? Is this adhering to that section of law? And so they can be as, you know, picky and stringent as they want. There's really not much of a court weigh-in on that. It's all through the Secretary of State and the governor's office.
Okay, so Orca said that theirs was turned down and they had to resubmit it. And then says Title 34 allows anyone to challenge the gist or language. They have 90 days. Right.
So people can challenge it all the time. They're challenging the state question 836 based on that. This section gives the Secretary of State the ability to reject it and say, no, you're not following state law.
Okay. And I'm going to point out for those of you who are watching, if you don't know, so in a bill, usually it's some kind of previous law that's amended, as this one was. There was actually law already on the books and it was amended by this bill that became a law. And so when you read a bill, the part that's new is underlined, which is that's why we're talking about the underlined part, and that's what you see on your screen. Okay, so I think we've gone through 5, B, and C. Yep. Any person who circulates a sheet of the petition shall be a registered voter of this state. And then it said, and shall, so not shall verify the signatures included in any signature sheets he or she circulates. So explain why that's important there.
Well, a lot of what they've been doing, and we've run into this nationwide, they actually will bus in and come in, bring people in to gather those signatures. So if you're grassroots, you're already using Oklahomans. You're going to use people. You're going to do your own training. You're going to figure this out. This is how it's been. When we circulated the petition on getting rid of the Blaine Amendment, we weren't using out-of-state people. We were using Oklahomans to go and gather those signatures, right? Professionals know how to talk you into something, and they don't have to be honest brokers. And what we have found is 99% of the time, the people that they're bringing in from out of state, just think of Antifa. When Antifa buses people into riots, do you think those are honest brokers? Probably not. Matter of fact, I can guarantee you they're not. And it's no different here. When they're bringing these folks in, why do you need to bring somebody from Michigan to come in and circulate a petition in the state of Oklahoma? Use an Oklahoma voter. And here's the other thing. What you run into is they bust these people in to come and get the signatures. And here's the real problem. If you need to ask them about how they got those signatures, How do you track that person down from Michigan to go figure out what did you do when you were gathering those signatures? Where were you? What were you doing when you got the signatures? We cannot track that down. And what that means is there is zero accountability. If you allow them to use out-of-state signature gatherers, there is zero accountability and a guarantee of fraud. Why would we want that in our petition process?
Well, and Orca points out that they will actually come in and pay people to get signatures. And if you're paying somebody to get a signature, how really interested are you? It's not even your interest. And Earl's daughter said, I love Section 6. And it's funny because I was telling you last night that somebody called me and said, you know, hey, this is up. Can you read this for me? Because I just want to make sure, because everybody's having a fit about it. And I just want to make sure that I'm reading it right, because it sounds great to me. So I stopped everything I was doing and read it, and it was number 6, where I was like, bing, that's the one you gotta have, because that's exactly the problem. So that, I think, is the main reason why the left is screaming, don't you? Or am I wrong on that?
No, you're right on that. And I saw where somebody else popped up and I can't remember who it was, but they said that they were paying them per signature.
Yeah.
By the way, this bill that I wrote stops them from being able to pay per signature. You can pay them. You have to do it according to federal labor standards, which I thought was a very fun thing. That was my idea, by the way. Because if you're a Democrat, how can you argue against federal labor laws? You know, they love federal labor laws, which, by the way, I don't agree with federal labor laws. But we might as well make them go gather the signatures according to them. But this law actually forbids them from paying per signature, because there again, if you're being paid per signature, do you care if it's a legitimate signature or not? No. So it just opens the door for a whole lot more corruption. So we kind of got 2 birds with 1 stone on that one.
Yeah, I think that.
Well, in that Section 6, how do you actually police that or enforce? You know, what's going to stop someone from just bringing in a busload from wherever and deploying them out anyway? How do we know they're a registered voter in Oklahoma?
So there's 2 entities there on the signature gathering side. The Secretary of State is really heavily involved in that. So they would have to be out there checking that to see. The other thing is if they got someone who came in and made an anonymous tip that they're out there doing it, right? The Secretary of State can now come back and question what they're doing and look at it. And so that creates something there. Now, is the system flawless? No. Somebody could obviously bust somebody in and we'd never know about it. There's no way to figure it out unless you catch them doing what they're doing. You know, that's kind of like we've got some guys around our neighborhood that are poaching deer off my land at night. And I called the game warden. He said, man, I'll try and catch them, but unless I catch them in the act, I can't catch them. Yeah. Kind of the same way here. You know, if we catch them in the act, there's really nobody out there policing. The AG will have some authority here as well. So you'd have to go look at that from side. There's not like a police force out there going to go look at each one of them. I will tell you, though, if you go to page 7 and scroll down on page 7, that I added a line in there that says any person who circulates the petition to collect signatures shall be a registered voter of the state and shall display conspicuous notice in any location where the person is collecting signatures. So technically, everywhere they're gathering signatures, they ought to have some signage out that says, I'm gathering signatures for this petition. So that's just another layer to try and force them to be able to follow the law. But that's like any other law we pass. Are there people who are going to break it? Obviously, there are.
Okay, I'm looking because we're on different versions of the bill, I think. And so 7. When you said page 7, it didn't come up. But I do want to make a point. So our friend on Rumble says this: requiring it to be a registered voter also creates an age limit. I didn't even think of this. An age limit on signature collectors. Were there any such requirements before? I haven't seen one. If not, a 10-year-old could do it.
Correct. No, there were, to my knowledge, there were no requirements on that anybody could sign as long as they're a resident of the state. And that was all that was required for them to do it. This actually goes in a little bit deeper as well. We were kind of talking it through, looking at this, because somebody came to me and said, hey, there was already a court case on this, and they would be correct. Who was the AG years ago that was so horrible? He ran for governor. Edmondson, Drew Edmondson.
Okay.
Edmondson was the one involved in that lawsuit. I went back and read that court case on this, and this was what they sued on, was being a registered voter of the state. And Edmondson, basically, the entire opinion of the court was a referendum on Drew Edmondson for doing such a horrible job of defending his case that he was supposed to defend, and he probably did a bad job on purpose. But there are 7 states right now, according to the 8th District Court, that came back and said there's 7 states right now who can require that you be a resident. And so I think that we can get somewhere on that within the 10th District because we're going to make a better argument. And I ran this through the ACLJ, that's Jay Sekulo's group, and we worked the language with them heavily, and Alliance Defending Freedom some, but more heavily on the ACLJ. And they agree. They think that I don't know if y'all are familiar with the difference between rational scrutiny and strict scrutiny within the court systems. Strict scrutiny says you have to have a very, very strong reason why the government needs to intervene in everyday life, right?
Yeah.
They believe that we just have to have rational scrutiny within this law because this really isn't putting a huge burden on the citizen. It's putting the huge burden on an out-of-state or an organization trying to gather those signatures. And so we really think that this one would pass muster because Edmondson tried to argue with strict scrutiny, and we're going to argue it with rational scrutiny all the way through. And I believe that wins.
So here's a great comment by our friend John Boy. The local notaries could turn them in.
Yeah.
Why not have a law or something added along the lines for the notary to ask for? This is a good job, John Boy. Why not have a law or something added along the lines for the notary to ask for voter ID card before stamping the signature papers?
Yeah, you probably could. That's not a bad idea.
John Boy, don't forget that, and let's get back with the senator when he's not sleeping in his car.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell him, and I can't remember his name, John Boy. Tell him to email
John
me
Stanley.
that. Yeah, tell John to email me, or John, if you're listening, email that to me. Email that suggestion. Let me look at it and see.
Yeah, his Senate address, which is
David.Bullard. It's david.bullard@oksenate.gov. That's a good suggestion. I'd really have to chew through how that process would work.
Well, I don't know, though. I really do think, because one of the things that my husband and I had to go drop off one of our cars to get serviced this morning, we were talking about the interview on the way home, and he said, yeah, but here's the thing. How do you make them do this? And, we've talked about this before, how many bills I've been involved in personally that become a law, and there's no mechanism for making anybody do anything that's in the law. It's more like a suggestion than a law, because then if you go and you say, hey, he did this, the court just goes, there's no, okay.
It's like what we run into all the time, Jenny, with the Parents' Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'll put it to you this way too. You remember, Jenny, when we ran the critical race theory, that was House Bill 1775. Right. And on the Senate side, I just dumped the language into a House bill, and Kevin West took it and argued it on the House side after I got done with it. And when Kevin and I were talking about it, we wanted there to be a punishment in the bill. Matter of fact, we have been trying to come back and put a punishment in the bill, because if you'll recall, when we ran the bill on the restrooms, on the changing rooms, where you cannot have a policy that allows boys to go into girls, opposite sex changing rooms, bathrooms. We put in that bill that if they didn't do it, if a school was caught in defiance of that bill, then they would lose 5% of their state allocated funding, and we open that school up to civil liability. So if you are a school and you're going to knowingly violate the law, those parents ought to be able to sue you for doing that. we've tried to go put that back in for 1775 because if you recall, we had a whole bunch of teachers said we're just going to ignore the law.
Yes.
Well,
And superintendents.
Oh yeah, and we had when we got into it, we've run that bill for some time trying to add that language into 1775, and they won't let us. It was the same way on a lot of bills. It is tough right now with the current leadership and the leadership we've had in the past to put any meaningful punishments in bills. If you'll recall, 1775, actually, I had the whole thing applying to universities and to Common Ed, and they made me take higher ed out. I had to sit down with presidents of universities who said, we don't like this. And I said, I don't care. And the floor leader at the time said, if you don't take universities out, I'm not hearing the bill. Well, at that point, what do you do? You know, if you want to get some reform done, you gotta water it down like they're telling you to. But it really gets tough on the enforcement side of trying to get some of those that put in bills.
But see, I do love the fact that you said, who cares?
Yeah, they don't like me very much because I'm pretty honest with them. When I ran the Student Bill of Rights, and I'm running it again this year for higher ed, it was on the floor, and I got on into a Zoom meeting with all of the presidents of every university, and they were arguing with me about why they didn't like this bill and everything. And I said, after 2 hours of arguing with them, I finally said, I got to go. I got other meetings. But I said, I'm a little shocked at you guys and disappointed, to be honest with you. I figured at some point one of you, just one of you, would figure this out, but you haven't yet. So I'll just tell it to you. The first school, the first university to endorse the Student Bill of Rights will be the fastest growing university in the nation. If you are a university and you will dedicate that your child's faith and their ideology are safe at this school, we are not going to try and liberalize and socialize your kids. That will be the fastest growing school in the universe in the nation. And one of them had their mic on and laughed at that. So they're not the friendliest people to liberty. So.
Oh, David, that's horrible. Okay, so let's go. An elector's signature shall serve as an attestation that the elector read the gist in full, or that the person who solicited the elector's signature read the gist in full to the elector. The Secretary of State shall establish procedures by which an elector can request to have his or her signature removed from the petition. So I'm just curious, why is that bad? Why is that going to stop our democracy?
Well, so there's alarm bells going off everywhere when you use the word democracy, and you know where I'm going with that, because we're not a democracy, we're a republic, and there is a massive difference. Just go read your founders. But yeah, that's always been an interesting point to me. Now, we added that in later on because we had a lot of people who came to me and others and said, David, there have been times where I signed a petition, and when I found out who the organization was and what they were really doing, they tricked me into getting my signature on there, or the gist was confusing, and I wanted a way to take my name off. And I think that's a big oversight measure that's in the bill, because now you got to understand some of these groups. And I was talking with Brett Farley with the Catholic Diocese, and Brett said, David, if we have somebody who's surfacing these petitions and they're not being honest about them, and they're running the signatures around, he said, we'll put out a mass email to people to say, hey, this is what the signature really does, and then they'll have a flood of people trying to get their name off of that petition.
Well, and I do think that's a point that you bring up. So one of the things that Michael and I have talked about over the years, and what we did with the Parents' Bill of Rights, for example, talked about, most people don't pay attention well enough to know that this bill passed and these things are out there. And we've got to start doing a better job of campaigning this stuff out, to Oklahomans, so that they understand. And I don't know, maybe that's where we go to our county election boards You know what I'm saying? And say, look, you guys are getting, send out a postcard saying, here is this bill, either go look it up or, hit the new parts in there to make people aware. Because I personally believe that our election boards in the counties were really interested in doing elections in a sound way that benefits the citizens, we the people of Oklahoma. They would do that.
Yeah, and I think to add to that point, you have to look at your county GOPs ought to be doing a better job of getting this information out. Because one of the things that shocked me in this was the amount of people who were willing to circulate a lie about this bill and other bills. We've had others that they've done it too. But what's that old saying? A lie can circle the world twice before the truth has a chance to put his pants back on. We run into that even within conservative circles about kind of how you started off this segment. We have people that will refuse to read it. Yeah. They won't even call me and ask me about it. They'll just try and blow me up on social media as I'm some horrible person, and they never bothered to come even talk to me about what, why, how's it really working. And the problem is, I still think right now, even on this bill, you have a lot of the lies that were circulated about this bill out there. And so there's a lot of people who are still in opposition to this bill who, if they really paid attention to it, read it, and understood it, would say, never mind, I like what the bill's doing. I can't tell you how many people I talked to on the phone who called me mad about the bill, that when we got done and I just explained them what the bill does, said, never mind, I like the bill, good job, thanks, appreciate what you're doing. So that's part of the problem we get into. And I'm going to go back to what I originally was talking about. Social media is the devil's playground. Yeah. And it's where usually lies are circulated and people just for some reason buy them. Yeah. And so we've got to get the truth out there. That's why I'm appreciative of this opportunity to really sit down and talk about it. Talked to a gentleman last night at the GOP deal, and I had never met him before, but he came up, talked to me, and said, well, we really didn't like your bill, but, we can disagree. And I handed him my phone number and said, call me, come meet with me. Let's talk. Because I think if you give us a chance, people who know me understand I am not in any way going to try and take away anybody's freedom. But I am going to fight against democracy, and I'm going to go after and protect the republic. And there was one of the senators who asked me a question on the floor. They said, why are you trying to destroy democracy? And my reply was, I'm not destroying democracy, I'm restoring a republic. And a lot of people are just going to have to realize, just because you saw it on Facebook or heard the rumor over there, you really need to dig in and find out what's going on and understand who the authors are. If you look at the author and it's somebody that's probably not very conservative, yeah, you better start asking some questions. But, I have been known my entire career, and that's not going to change, fighting hard for conservative values. So why in the world would I all of a sudden just switch and make a bill to come after and attack, anybody's freedom? I'm not going to. So consider. So
I have to throw this in because it cracks me up. Yeah, but the naked truth doesn't wear pants at all.
I don't really want that thought in my head. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Okay, now here's one. Orca says the mechanics of removal of signatures is pulling a needle in a haystack unless the tech gets updated at the SOS.
Secretary of State. Yeah. Right. I mean, he's going to have, that's why we said on there that they would create a process by which they could remove that signature. So yes, that's absolutely correct. But that's everything under the sun. I mean, we have a lot of processes that need to be updated to be able to do a better job. So,
Robert says this, and I do think it's important because it's true. I mean, there's really no money to combat out-of-state liberals exploiting our petition process, and by that, and don't let me put words in your mouth, Robert. But by that, I take that to mean, we have liberals and progressives they take their money and put their money where their emotions are. I mean, and they are going to spend that money to make things happen. And conservatives, part of the reason we're called conservatives is because we don't use our money that way. We try to be, we're supposed to anyway, try to be careful or conservative with our dollars. And so we just don't do that kind of thing. And I don't believe that the good people of Oklahoma think that people are out to get them. I really honestly think so many people that they don't have a cynical bone in their body, and they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that sounds really great. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. And that's probably the biggest reason why we had to have this bill, is because we're too trusting.
Well, we run into this all the time, because we have people don't do their homework. It's just a fact. It gets real and it was frustrating for me before I even got into office, trying to argue with people about different points. They would hear an emotional argument, and rather than doing their own research, they would just start adopting the same emotional argument rather than going and fact finding to try and figure things out. And we run into that all over the place. He is absolutely correct. I mean, the thing about it is, if you want to murder babies in the womb, you can raise all the money in the world you want. If you want to raise taxes on people and call it equity, you can literally raise all the money you want. If you want to disband the law enforcement and get rid of them, if you want to give public education free reign to say whatever and teach whatever to our kids, man, you can raise all the money you want. But the reality is, conservatives are the ones out there working. That's your middle class. And your conservatives are the ones that they don't have time a lot of times to dig in the way that they should. And they don't have the extra money because they keep raising taxes on people and they keep finding more ways to get to their money. So conservatives are going to just have to learn. That's why this grassroots movement is such a big deal to me. This is the first time I've seen an opening in our political system that we could actually win, and win big, and actually have a legislature, a House and a Senate that does what the people of Oklahoma expect. But it's not because of money. In 2024, you saw a very strong example that money didn't get you a single thing. They spent $5 million trying to save liberal Republican seats, and what happened to them? They lost, every one of them. And so grassroots is proving the point that I've been excited for and waiting for a long time. It's not about money anymore. It's about the idea. It's about the policy. And it's actually about how you behave and act when you get up in the legislature. And if you don't do what the people have elected you, we brought it up last night. All we're asking, it's not a strong thing that we're asking these political candidates to do. All we're asking you is to be what you are on a push card that you put in my mailbox. That's it. And if you're not that, go find a different job somewhere else.
What did you say last night? Be who you are on the push card in my mailbox.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking you to do. And that's all the people of Oklahoma are asking you to be. And if you get up there and act different from what you told them you are, what's exciting about this grassroots deal is they're removing them. They're not playing with you anymore. And I love it. Do your job. Do what you said that you are, and no amount of money is going to save you. And that's not something I don't think we've ever seen. Money has always been what talks in this, and it's not now.
So Orca says, we've got issues with some of the bill, but if we do our job, we'll get the signatures. And I do appreciate, I appreciate that, because I do think this doesn't restrict in any way, your ability to get the signatures. It just, it may make it a little bit more difficult, but Julia said this, and I think this is so true. I've had several chances to explain that bill, and I usually just say, hey, are you okay with only OKC and Tulsa making laws for our state?
No, that's a great point, because when we look at it, that has been what has been the decision maker in Oklahoma since our conception, right? Since 1907, Oklahoma City and Tulsa have pretty well dictated everything that we're going to do in the rest of the state. And it allows, the current process allows them to completely ignore 75 counties or 74 counties. And really, the main part of the bill we never even got to. The main part of the bill is requiring those percentages of signatures, forcing them to get out away from the city and go get those things done. We ought to be requiring you to talk to more Oklahomans if you're going to put the signatures up there. Now, you and I had this conversation later, and at some point we got to have this talk. We're not a democracy. And if you go look up what an initiative petition process is, it is a pure democracy. So let me challenge people. Go to Google and type in quotes from the founding fathers on pure democracies or on democracy. What you will find is they detest democracies. I believe it was Jefferson who said that a Republican form of government is the only form of government which is not at constant war with liberty. There has never been a democracy that did not commit suicide. Just go read what they said about democracies. Yeah. And I'll be very frank with you. If I could get rid of the initiative petition process and return us to a republic, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't think I could get it past Oklahoma City and Tulsa, back to the point you just made. I could not restore the republic if I wanted to right now, because Oklahoma City and Tulsa like the liberal way of doing this. And so that ought to tell you a whole lot about the process that you're in right now.
Well, no, I do, on that vein, though, we do have the ability to redress our government. And a lot of people, including myself, think that the initiative petition process is a way to redress your government.
Well, but so is elections. And so a lot of what we've worked, a lot of the reason why the founders said the Republican form of government works is what's happening right now with grassroots. You and I just talked about it, and we both agree and believe that grassroots is the way we change our state. And it's not because we got a pile of money. It's because more and more people are seeing and understanding that if you'll stand up and go knock doors, if you'll participate in the process, then you'll get legislators that actually listen to what it is that you want. But I was arguing with a liberal on this back during session, and a lot of the liberal argument was, well, but how is it that we can get things done when our legislators won't do what we want?
Yeah.
But then they would turn right around and say, see, we got Medicaid expansion. Yeah. We got 780, which is supposedly criminal justice reform. It is
supposedly.
We're going to get this new open primary system. And that was their argument was, well, the conservative legislators won't do what we want. So we're just going to go around the conservative legislature or legislators, and we're going to go straight to the people and try and get that process done that way.
That's a fair cop.
I think that there's a lot of danger in that concept. That's why the founders were so big on a republic. If you want a state question to change the Constitution, go to your legislator and tell them, I want you to run this. And if they won't do it, run against them or find somebody to run against them. But that's the vision of a republic.
Well, and that makes perfect sense when you say it. Orca says we defeated 4 million of out-of-state dollars when we stopped question 820. It can be done by the grassroots, and I'm surprised you're not happy that 820 didn't pass, but okay. Earl says, and this is so true. I have to agree with Jenny. Before I became a cynical old lady, I remember signing many petitions outside of Walmart that sounded good. Now I wonder what in the world I signed. And it's true. We've just got to And John was talking about the fact that they get homeless people to run the petitions. Hold on, I'm trying to see if there's some questions in, because we've got a lot of comments, and I'm just trying to see if there's a question in here to get to. Okay, let's go back to the bill, and let's go down, because there's quite a bit here in G. Any person who circulates a petition to collect signatures shall disclose this SOS. Any employer or entity that is compensating the person for the circulation of that petition, no compensation shall be based on number of signatures collected, number of signature sheets submitted, or any other similar incentives. No person or entity who does not reside or do business in the state shall contribute to or compensate a person for circulation of a petition. Any person or entity that employs a person for circulation of a petition shall follow federal labor standards, which is what you were talking about before. And
Yep.
I read this and I'm like, this is so awesome. But again, how do we educate us? How do we make that stick?
Well, a lot of that's going to come down to catching them doing it and the Secretary of State turning it into the AG and the AG prosecuting them for not following the law. And that's really how that's going to wind up being. There's not really, like, the Secretary of State doesn't have a police force. And by the way, I don't want the Secretary of State to have a police force. So I'm not saying that at all. But the Secretary of State doesn't have a police force to go out there and start checking them. So it's going to be a matter of somebody catches them doing it wrong, and they turn them in, and then the AG can go after them and do what they need to do. That's why the Attorney General's race is so important, because we do not have an Attorney General who's willing to do anything right now. Make sure the next guy or girl that becomes the Attorney General actually will follow the law and do what the law says.
Well, and prosecute people. I don't even know what Gintner Drummond's doing there. I mean, he puts out a lot of press releases.
Well, he's running
but
for governor.
I don't know that he's actually doing anything other than saying that he's doing something.
Right. No, he's running for governor. There's no policy there. It's just the next step.
Well, and he started out running for governor. I don't know that he ever did his job in the first place.
No,
okay, any person or entity expending funds on the circulation of petition shall submit a weekly report to the Secretary of State that details each such expenditures and that attests that all donated funds were received from sources in the state. The Secretary of State shall publish such records on the Secretary's website until the vote on the measure has occurred. So I have an idea. So it seems to me that, yes, we do not want the Secretary of State to have a police force. However, is there not somebody that we could employ inside the SOS office who would be a researcher, right? Who would actually, because we don't have that many initiative petitions. It's not like, I mean, the person that we employ doing this would have to have other jobs that they were doing as well. But when there is an initiative petition, we send this person out to go check up on these things. Why can't we do that? I would actually pay for that kind of a government job.
Yeah, it could. I made a note on that. I'll call the Secretary of State and talk to him, Josh Cockcroft, about that to see if one of his employees could just be sent out to go and review these and make sure they're doing it. That's not a bad idea. They wouldn't have the ability to just walk up and shut down a signature. I don't want that. Shut down a signature process, but they could gather evidence and then turn it in that, hey, you've got a group over here not following it. The measure you're talking about there on H is just a transparency measure. And actually, for some of that, a lot of that you just read off could be done from an office where they could just be looking on a computer to say, hey, how come you haven't turned this in? You're not following state law, and then turn it into the AG and let the AG, do what they need to do with it. A lot of this, all law depends on law enforcement doing their job, and the AG is the chief law enforcement officer of the state.
Right.
And so all of it depends on whether or not you're doing a job. I mean, a lot of the problem we're having right now with DHS and a lot of these other issues around the state have to do with the fact that our courts are not doing their job. So you can make all the laws you want, but if a court won't enforce the law, what good does it do?
Well, and Orcus says too, don't duplicate government, use the ethics commission. I can show you how to do that. And I don't know, maybe the ethics commission is an option, but I was just thinking we use an employee that's already there, you know, because like I said, it's not like we have 20 of these things. We only have, you know, one, maybe two.
Well, and I'll argue a little bit with that last comment on the ethics commission. There's two ways that you could look at it and see. First, when you're talking about ethics, one, we over the years, and I don't agree with what they've done, but over the years they have actually they have reduced the ethics commission where they're not really very effective.
Yes, correct.
And that's not a good thing. That there was some egos going on whenever I first got in, and I was watching the tail end of this, where they were reducing the ethics. And the problem is, it's allowed a lot of that out-of-state money coming in to these PACs and being spent in our state, real similar to the problem we're having on the initiative petition signature process. You know, we got a lot of money coming in from PACs out of state. There's not legal money, and ethics. Let's see, how do I put this? Ethics would rather go nitpick a senator or a rep or a political officer who's doing their job and nitpick them on the little things they should have done when they should have put their time and money into going after illegal money. And so we've been trying to get ethics to understand, if you'll focus your attention on illegal money, illegal PACs, illegal LLCs, trying to have an impact on Oklahoma elections, then we would help you. But the problem is, every time we give them money, rather than going after what they should go after, they start nitpicking us a little bit more. I don't mind the scrutiny, and I'm not saying I don't want scrutiny. I want them to go look at my reports and say, hey, how come you entered this as this, right? That's not a big deal, but that's what they spend 90% of their time doing. And what I want them doing is investigating these consultants, and you know who I'm talking about, these consultants that go out there and do all the money and all the stuff illegal in a campaign, and nothing happens to them. They just get a slap on the wrist and we walk off. So
well, and
ethics,
you know,
I just don't think ethics is I don't think that they're capable of doing what he's talking about with going out there and looking these people over. It's going to have to be somebody like the Secretary of State or the AG to go do it.
well, and I think, you know, especially after, you know, I did all that expose on the Oklahoma PACs and, you know, even took them the changes that we thought would be helpful to the ethics rules.
Yep.
You know, it was just dead radio silence there. So, sorry, I have to put this up. Gettner enjoys taking photo ops and brandishing his AG badge. And Orca says he's having to create his own reporting form. So that may be another one that we, you know, we need to get on.
And all of those things are not changes that have to be done in the law. We can make those changes. We can make those changes without going after the law. You know, that's stuff that the Secretary of State could do now, or the AG could do now to try and improve the implementation of the process.
Yeah, and John says ethics won't go after a guy running for sheriff. And
Right.
this is in Potawatomi County. Who
I
doesn't
think
make money. Yeah.
I think ethics is too far diminished. I don't disagree with the premise that ethics would be the better entity to do it, like on paper.
Yeah.
The problem is, I just don't think that they're capable of doing it right now, unless we gave them more money. But we're really hesitant to give them any more money until they go start focusing on the right stuff. If they'll focus on the illegal acts of people running for office and the illegal acts of people in office, I mean, I'm talking illegal.
Right.
Not I filed something as a candidate, you know, everyday office holder, and I should have filed it as something else. I filed it, and I told you how I spent that money.
Yeah.
Instead of nitpicking me on that, go after the guy that's out there raising money illegally.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Okay, so we got that done. So let's see. The total number. So you've changed this a little bit. The total number of votes cast for the office of governor at the last general election. So it's, what's the
11
percent?
11.5% for the it's 11.5% if you're changing
There it is.
statute, and it's 20.8% if you're changing the Constitution. And a lot of that has to do with the number of signatures. So the number of signatures that you need is set in the Constitution. They actually lowered that back in 2010, which is a lot of why you're seeing a lot of out-of-staters come in. We opened the door for them to come back into the state and do something there. But that 11.5%. So we, hang on just a minute. I actually have kind of a graph of what it would require.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So, so just as an example, in Oklahoma County, if they were going to change the statute for that state question 832, the minimum wage one, that's the minimum wage where they're increasing the minimum wage.
Yeah.
They would have had to have gotten 25,593 signatures in order to get the 11.5%.
Okay.
Tulsa County would have been 21,350. What's really fascinating when you go down here and look at it, some of these on that state question 832 minimum wage, Adair County, they only went and gathered 23 signatures in Adair County. Kiowa County 20, Major County 16, Woods County 15, Love County 14. It was funny because on the floor somebody said, well, in Harmon County, you know, they would only get they'd only have to get like 30 something signatures in Harmon County. In Harmon County on that state question, they only got 2 signatures was all that they gathered in Harmon County. And they didn't go to Harmon County, by the way. You know what they do on this. They go to the Tulsa County Fair and they get their signatures there.
Yeah.
And those 2 people are 2 people that just happen to be at the Tulsa County or the Oklahoma Fair. And that's how they do it. So they just hang out around those places to get them. This actually makes them go out to those other counties.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's fair. And Julia points out, this is a really good point too. The Ethics Commission wouldn't do anything about Sean McDaniel using the Mustang Public Schools website to campaign for one of his teachers 10 years ago. I mean, we have all these ethics rules and, you know, why aren't we actually following them? Okay. I like the fact that you changed must to shall, because must doesn't mean anything in the law, does it? But shall does.
Right. Shall has a much stronger meaning.
Yep. Okay, lots of changing, had to change the numbers. And I think shall not contain euphemisms, words, or phrases regarded in popular parlance as code words. Or give me an example of that.
Yeah, so this is now this is not the gist. This is actually talking about the title. So when you go to vote, so just keep in mind we're switching. We just took that language on the gist and added it to the one. So if you go back to the beginning of the bill and you go to section 1 and 2, section 3 on the gist, it's the same language.
Okay.
Says not contain euphemism, words, or phrases regarding popular policy as code words or apparent attempt to deceive voters. So, in other words, abortion is healthcare, that kind of thing.
Oh, I get you now.
Yeah, stuff like that. And then, but all we did, so you just got to understand where we've actually switched to another section of law that's talking about the title. So this is what it will say when you're actually voting on the measure, not gathering signatures.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I shouldn't, because I'm just trying to get through so you don't have to keep sitting there in your car. It can't be very cool.
No, you're good.
Hold on. Where are we? Is there anything left on? I'm looking for underlined language.
Yeah, so you just passed it. There's some new law right at the end. We made it.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, we made the provision. We made it so that if you this kicks in when the Secretary of State says you have the authority to go gather signatures, is essentially what we did. Because at some point you have to put a timeline and say, this is where it starts right here. Yeah. And so we just put that on there, and then we made it severable, which I resisted putting that in the law for a long time. Every law in Oklahoma is severable. Just remember, Obamacare was inseverable. They made Obamacare inseverable. In other words, the way they wrote it, if the courts threw out one part of Obamacare, they had to throw out the entire part of it. Did the courts pay any attention to that at all? No. So every law in Oklahoma is severable. So they don't, if they take out a part of this law, it doesn't kill the whole thing.
Well, why would you not want it to be severable then?
It's not that I don't want it severable. It's that every law in Oklahoma is severable. You don't have to say it in the law for it to be severable. So
oh, I see. Okay.
I just had some people come to me and say it would make us feel a whole lot better if it said that it's severable. And so I said, okay, put it in. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's an irrelevant part of the law because every law in Oklahoma is already severable right now, whether you say it is or isn't. If you came into the law and said this whole law is inseverable, if you kick out one part of it, you got to kick out the whole thing. The courts don't care. They're going to come in and kick out the parts of it that they want. It doesn't matter.
I get it. Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So we actually went through the whole bill, Senator. Sure. It really doesn't sound like it was that horrible to me.
No. And I'll tell you this, when I ran in 2018, I ran on the platform of this initiative petition reform. And so this wasn't something I hid from people and said, and this is some dirty little secret that I'm trying to remove your democracy. I ran on this concept. I have been very open that our initiative petition process is a very strong danger to our Republican form of government. And we got to get a handle on it. If you don't get a handle on it, it's going to get bad real fast. And I'm going to tell you right now, if this 836 passes, every state that has passed open primaries has become a blue state within a decade. So if you want it run by liberal Democrats, you go ahead and vote for that thing because that's what you'll end up with. This is a bad idea. And so what we've been trying to explain to people is you don't want it. And this is, we open up a lot more of this kind of stuff if we keep doing this.
Well, and I mean, that is one thing that we've got to make sure people understand is that we absolutely do not want ranked choice voting. I mean, nope. I'm not sure what could be worse. And you're right. I mean, it's not right. Okay. Couple of things, but I think we can let you go because they don't look like they're questions directly for you. They look like, well, Orca says that they're looking forward to going through the process of providing feedback and which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
no,
here's one question.
Go ahead.
Shouldn't the state legislative body be holding the ethics commission to uphold the state constitution? So there is that. That's a good question. Can the legislative body not direct the ethics commission?
We can through law, but if they choose to violate the law, then it would be something like the AG would have to come in, I would think. Like we don't have an enforcement arm to go in and prosecute them. That would be the AG that would have to do that.
Okay. All right.
Now, I think the law and the Constitution directs them to protect the Constitution now. So another law isn't going to make them follow the law any better. We need to get into the enforcement side of all of our laws. And that's why I say who you pick for AG matters. Because if you get a good AG that's doing their job, they'll hold the Ethics Commission and DHS and all the mental health and all these other. If you get an AG that knows what they're doing, they'll hold these people accountable to the job that they're supposed to do. The way we've held them accountable is we strip funds from them to try and get a handle on them. But that's not necessarily a good thing either because now they're understaffed. The problem is, just like I said earlier, they were spending the bulk of their time going after good legislators and just nitpicking rather than going after the bad actors.
Okay, they were afraid of you getting off. So now we've got about 20 questions in the queue. So let me try to go through them pretty quick here.
Hey,
Senator
just
Bullard,
one thing. Hang on.
Yep.
My earbud, if it goes dead, I'm gonna try and put it on speaker.
Okay.
These are older earbuds, so if you know why.
Okay. Senator Bullard, why were you in favor of 90 days instead of 180 or 360?
Well, part of it is, so 90 days was actually passed a year or two ago where we shrunk it down to 90 days. I was actually in favor of that. 90 days is plenty of time to go and get those signatures. That's not a problem for them to gather those signatures. If you give them 180 days or 360 days to go and get it, all you do is allow those out-of-state liberal organizations a lot more time to get those signatures done. And then you really haven't stopped anything if you let them have that much time. If you give them that much time and they're the ones that have all the money, they're going to get everything that they want. It's just a matter of time.
So I think our grassroots people, we just need to make sure that we're already, be
organized.
Yeah, be organized.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you're going to start an initiative petition, and I've told people this before in the legislature, I've had some who are mad because they didn't get a bill heard or they lost their bill in argument, kind of things like that. It ought to be difficult for you to pass a bill. It should. It should not be an easy thing for you to pass a law on the people of Oklahoma. It ought to be a really, really, really tough thing to do. So if you're looking for me to make it really easy for you to pass a law on the citizens of Oklahoma, I'm not going to do that. If you want to pass it in your grassroots, be organized, get your stuff together, and get it done. But don't 90 days is plenty of time to get that done.
So this person says the reason why it matters because there are very few ways in which a private citizen can make change beyond the city level for recalls and such. And I do want to kind of get you to address that quickly. So we don't in Oklahoma, we don't have any provision for recalls. Do you think that's a good thing because we just vote you out the next time? Or
no? I think we ought to have a recall ability for anybody. For a lot of things. Now, the problem is if you open up a recall, what will happen is the liberals will do nothing but pester the conservatives, and you'll never be able to get anything done. So it would have to be for like really specific reasons. I would love to see at our local level, especially recallability of school board members, city council.
Yes.
I think that it would really be a big deal for us to be able to recall even senators, but it ought to have to be for an illegal act, because if you do it any other way, all they're going to do is just make it to where you can't get anything done because they're going to be in a constant lawsuit to recall your election. So
well,
you'd have
we
to be
just
kind of
looked
careful with it, but I think so.
Yeah, we just looked that up the other day, and there already are laws on the books for that. So if they do something illegal, you can actually get them removed if the AG is willing to go after them. So that, I mean, it seems to me like there should be something a little bit easier. But then Earl's daughter says, so will the petitions and their money be transparent on a government website?
Yes.
So where is that going to be, through the SOS office?
Yeah, it'll be Secretary of State's office. The law says that the Secretary of State has to post it on their website.
Okay, well, there you go. That's the answer to that question. Julie, I'll get to yours in a second. Okay. All right. So I think we're good. No more questions, but we did have several thank yous, Senator Bullard, for taking your time to do this. And hopefully people will understand why I'm trying to kind of brush you off because it's hot in that car. So.
I've got the air conditioner going. I'm okay.
Oh, do you really? Okay.
Yeah,
right.
I'm good.
I was like, I'm not
good.
Even hearing that.
No. I parked in the shade and I've got the air conditioner going real good. Listen, here's what's interesting on topics like this. When I ran for office, I felt as though and thought through the process enough and prayed through enough that God was calling me to get in the fight, because I understand the Constitution. I used to teach it for 15 years. Spoke publicly on our Christian and constitutional heritage. I know our Constitution very well. And I'm not going to waste my time in the Senate by running little ticky-tack language cleanups, whatever they want to call them. If I'm here, I'm going to go take on issues that matter to Oklahoma and that safeguard to make sure my two girls will have their freedom and liberty long after I'm dead and gone.
Yeah.
So that means you got to run tough stuff. And I knew that the initiative petition process bill, there were going to be those who were going to not like it. I did not anticipate some people trying to take on the liberal argument. That's the part of it that shocked me the most. Was
Yeah.
I had a lot of not a lot. I had a handful of
It,
conservatives come to me making the liberal argument for the Democrats. They literally
yeah.
were making the progressive argument.
And I'm going to say it was a lot, because I was really shocked at some of the people
Yeah.
who were against this. I'm like, have you even read the bill?
Yeah. And so that was a little bit of a shock to me. I knew it was going to be tough. And I knew there were going to be people who were going to say, no, this is going to hurt grassroots. This in no way hurts grassroots. If this hurts you, it just means you were disorganized. Get organized, get ready, and go and get your stuff done. Don't blame me for that.
Or you weren't real serious about it.
Yeah. So get your stuff done and take care of it. You can organize and figure things out and do a better job that way. But the reality is if what we're fighting for is status quo, I'm not interested. I'm never going to fight for status quo. I want change. I want freedom protected. And as long as we had that open and easy initiative petition process, freedom was always at danger in Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is their number one target, because they know if they can get to Oklahoma and change our laws right in front of us without anything we can really do about it, then we have a problem. And so they're trying to take us for a reason. And here's the thing. It's just like the gentleman last night who came and talked to me. I gave him my cell phone number. I'm not scared of an argument. I never have been scared of an argument. And if you ever met my wife, you'd understand why I'm so good at arguing. She's really good. So for a lot of those people, I've never heard from most of these people. They never emailed me or came and talked to me. If you've got a question on a bill, come talk to me. I don't mind. We can disagree and we'll go have some barbecue and life's good. I still love you. But at the end of the day, give people a fighting chance who are up there putting their neck out on the line for you, to at least have the courtesy to come talk to me about what it is that you're going before you try and kill my bill.
Yeah. And I think that's fair enough. And that's kind of an interesting comment. I don't agree with everything the senator says here, but he certainly won my vote for transparency and openness. So,
good.
And honestly, if we could just do that, I think that solves a lot of the other adjacent issues. But we can't even do that when you've got a state senator who is opening his particular committee in the Senate by saying there won't be no videoing.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I heard you laughing because
my earbud's dead.
Yeah. Well, this topic, I'm kind of hoping that the topic might be dead.
Yeah,
well, I'm just hoping that that it made sense, because I think going through it, I think people who had questions will see what you're trying to do here.
Sure. Well, and I have never once told people I'm perfect. If I've got a flaw in the bill, I'll come talk to me. We'll look at it and we'll change and see where we go from there. Because some people have good ideas. Some people, get an idea on something and doesn't work. And we'll argue about it and talk about it when we get there. But, we've got a good handle on the initiative petition process now with this law. We're fighting it in court, and we knew we were going to have to fight this in court. There's a lot of other issues out there that we have got to work on. Managed care, you and I have fought that fight.
Yes, we have.
Managed care is an absolute disaster, and we've got to do something to fix it.
Yeah.
You and I talked about this last night. You asked me what I think is the biggest issue, and I think it's property tax. And I think as long as we have property tax, you don't own property. And that's a constitutional violation. The Fifth Amendment says that you have the right to not be deprived of your life, your liberty, or your property without due process of law. Paying taxes is not a crime. And so you should not lose your property just because of property taxes. And so I filed a bill this year that's an SJR to remove them. I think that might have been a little bit aggressive, but I've never been told that I'm too shy on things. So we're going to go back and revisit it. There's an interim study coming up with Senator Bergstrom and LePac and Shane and I and several others. Kendall Sacchieri is another one on that working group. And let me tell you something, guys. Kendall Sacchieri is the real deal. She is awesome. And so we're all putting our heads together trying to figure out how to solve the and go after property taxes. I think you'll see that be the number one issue this year.
Well, and there are some of us that are working to get a handle on tax incentives too, because when we're giving billions of dollars away to businesses,
Yep.
and that's coming from our pockets, and yet we're saying we need more money from you. We don't have a problem with the overall government, except for a spending problem. Our problem is a spending problem.
Right.
And until we get the spending problem solved, it just continues to be
yeah, and it just spirals out of control because we turn into this we turn into this it's the corporate welfare is what it turns into, and the deeper we get into corporate welfare, the worse it's going to get. If you want to build businesses and make Oklahoma friendlier for business, that's called a tax cut. Let's get rid of the taxes, stop taxing the snot out of people.
Well, and I think the thing that irritates me the most is when you talk to so-called conservatives, people who put this on their, the thing that you get in your mailbox, and you ask them, you say, what makes you a conservative? They sound like Porky Pig. They don't really know what the term is, but then they'll say the phrase free enterprise in there somewhere. Well, we're for free enterprise. And you're like, okay, so how is it free enterprise to give OG&E, who gets taxpayer dollars because we have to pay them to keep the lights on, $1 billion in tax incentives?
Yeah. Let me give you another one. How about a university that charges kids tuition and fees and everything under the sun? And on top of that, we subsidize them with taxpayer dollars so that they can go indoctrinate our kids.
Oh, it's absolutely 100%. And Catherine brings up another good one. There's a TIF district proposed for the new quad data center in Owasso. So and Julia points out that free enterprise is voluntary taxes. That's what free enterprise is. I mean, it's not this, I'm going to take your money and give it to this business, and then I'm going to, take this and give this to this business. And our friend says demonopolize electricity, and incentives matter. So that's another thing that we have to work on too, because we've got to quit spending. If we could stop spending.
Yeah. Well,
you wouldn't feel the need to tax us quite so much anyway.
Well, and the other side of it is, you and I had this talk the other day, but green energy, I was watching the Big Beautiful Bill, and you know what people were most upset about on the Big Beautiful Bill? They left in those tax incentives for green energy. And I think you're seeing a lot of people are demanding it's time to be done with it. And that really ought to be a local control issue in my mind. It ought to be a matter of if you want to put a wind farm or an energy farm here, you need to go talk to the people there and get their vote to be able to put that in at all. So we've got to work on these setbacks and giving more local control on that side.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because Justin Hornback, John, is a sweet man. They're so great. Hats off to Jenny for last night, the Republican GOP boots and bling. She was the only one I saw interviewing the people running for office or those already in office. Well, that's what I was there to do. But the point of the matter is we interviewed Justin Hornback, who's running for Corporation Commission, because we're losing, gosh, I can see his face, but I can't think of his name.
Anthony?
No. Nope. He just got in trouble, actually. Tim Hyatt. We're losing Hyatt. And so Justin Hornback is running for Corporation Commission, which is a state office. It's not like a corporation commission. It's a state office. And I thought he was running for Corporation Commission. So I was a little embarrassed when he goes, no, Jenny, it's Corporation Commission. But we got into talking about, okay, explain to me why there's no regulation on solar installations. There's no regulation on wind installations. There's no regulation on data centers coming in. And our president on Thursday night just walked out and said, there aren't going to be any regulations. These are bad things, these regulations. And you want to shake him by the neck and go, really? Isn't that how you protect citizens? Aren't regulations against, because what happens? You get a data center in your backyard and somehow there's a mercury flow from some of the backflow from the, who knows? Well, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? I mean, you can't, there's no regulation.
Well, and the government has a responsibility to protect my private property rights.
Oh, yes, they
So
do.
if you put a windmill farm right next to my house, what happens to the value of my house? You can't sell it. And I'll tell you, marijuana is the same way. We've run into this because I do real estate. I've had houses that I had listed that we've never been able to sell because there's a marijuana hoop right next to it. Now, they have a right to have a marijuana grow, sure. Do they have a right to set it next to my house and ruin my property? No. Wind farms are the same way. These data centers, I don't know if you've heard how much noise they make, but these data centers are unbelievable. They're taking up a massive amount of electricity. So, yeah,
Water.
they have a right. You have private property rights, but you can't do whatever you want on that private property. And where do your rights end? They end when you start interrupting or taking away my freedom, right? They can't overlap. Your freedom has to be here and my freedom has to be here. And there can't be an overlap where you take away my freedom because of yours. Freedom of speech is the same way. I think it was Gorsuch that referred to it as the heckler's veto. You know, that's what the Democrats have used their freedom of speech for, is a heckler's veto, that they use their free speech to shut down your free speech. Who has it? Same way on this green energy junk that's out there. They do not have a right to devalue and strip me of my property because they want to put something next to me and make a pile of money off of it, plus have a whole bunch of corporate welfare as well, where they're now taking the taxpayer dollars. So we got to get a handle on it. Our tax code is in long overdue for a big major overhaul.
Did I cut you off?
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll go ahead and let you go. There were a couple of questions about TIF districts, and I'll talk about those unless you want to.
Now go ahead. What you got? I'm in the shade and the air conditioner's going, so we might as well.
All right. It's my understanding Chandler City Council just voted in it. It's a TIF, TIF, tax increment finance is what the TIF stands for. What's that all about? And I would assume that you would agree that you're very happy that we didn't get the state question on TIFs, statewide TIFs.
Yeah.
I didn't even believe we did that.
Yeah, that one was a bad idea. Yeah, I don't know on Chandler. Did the city council or was it the county commissioners that did that voted on the TIF?
The county commissioners did. Well,
Yeah,
no, I think the city has to. So I think the county commissioners can vote in a county TIF,
yes.
but then city council has to vote in a TIF that would be in the city.
Yeah. So if it's it's a jurisdiction base, right? So if it's in the city's jurisdiction, then the city has to be the one that votes on that TIF.
Yeah.
If it's a county jurisdiction issue, the county has to be the one. And I don't know where this is that he was talking about. Was his name Dorn? Was his name Dorn, Jenny, that asked that
Dorn.
question?
Yes,
yeah.
Dorn did.
I would assume that's probably his town or his city. So I don't know.
It's close.
Yeah, if it's close to where he's at. We had the same thing in Bryan County where we had a TIF voted in, kind of flew under the radar, and we're trying to shut down a data center right now coming into Bryan County as well. So they're sneaking these things in wherever they can. And to be honest with you, a lot of it is, I called my county commissioners. They're good guys. They weren't trying to sneak anything past anybody, but the reality is they think they're going to get a bunch of revenue out of it, and they're not. And listen, here's the other side of it. Everything under the sun cannot be for sale. You can't sell your citizens out to a data center or to a windmill farm or to a solar panel farm or any of those kinds of things. And so we've got to handle that from a different standpoint. But here's the thing: in Bryan County, for example, if they had put that up for a vote in Bryan County, it would have never passed.
Yeah.
And so these things ought to be going to the people of those counties for them to make that decision. Or in the city, it ought to be a matter of the people who are residents of that city ought to be the ones having to vote on that.
Well, this may be a suggestion for you as well. So many people, like the mayor here in Luther, signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, when the people from Atlanta came in wanting to put a data center in Luther. And the problem is that an NDA, there's no reason for it. They say, oh, trade secrets or whatever. Well, no, you don't even have to bring those up. That isn't even the issue. They use these NDAs to do things out from the light of the people around them. And somebody, and it may have been last night when I was interviewing, somebody said, you know what we need to do is make a state law. And I hate to do this because you know how much I hate lawmaking, but we may need to make a state law that says NDAs can only be used for 1, 2, 3, or one.
I would.
Maybe just one. I don't know, but they're
Yeah.
being overused, and it's being done in a way that allows business to do business their way without involving, the people around them, and that's wrong.
Yeah, NDAs are just a way to cover up what you're really doing.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I would love to get a handle on those NDAs, because really, when it comes to government taxpayer dollars, there's no such thing as an NDA. Now, if I'm a business and I'm working with another business, then yes, NDAs are that's my business. If you're talking about taxpayer dollars, NDAs should not be allowed at all. Because
No.
if you're talking about spending my tax money, there ought to be full 100% transparency on how you anticipate or are planning to spend my taxpayer dollars.
I don't see how that's not right.
No, I don't either. I heard somebody, the first year I was in office, I heard somebody refer to taxpayer dollars as my money. And I quickly corrected them, and because it's not your money. There's no such, governments don't have money.
No.
The only way government has money is if they first steal it from somebody else. And so governments don't have money. Taxpayers have money. And there's a mindset there that's gotten lost at all levels. That's at the federal level. We had a lot of people who were opposed to any kind of tax cut, any kind of tax reform. They're the same people that were pushing for tax credits for the big businesses and things like that out there. They were
You mean the
opposed to any
Chamber of
kind
Commerce?
yes, yeah, and they were opposed to any kind of tax cut because they didn't want to lose the revenue. Well, I have a problem with that phrase.
Yeah.
Governments don't have revenue. They have theft. They have a way of taking money from people involuntarily, but governments don't have revenue. They have sources of theft.
Well, Robert makes another really good point. Regulations on oil and gas exist because 100 years ago, we put millions of holes secretly across the state, then flushed salt water down the creeks and paid for it today. We'll be paying for taking those wind turbines down, or for having all these data centers, or for having no cropland because we've got solar panels over them, and oops, we had a hailstorm, and now that area is embedded with glass. I mean, there is no forethought happening here. It's all money, 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 and that's what it is. It's just ridiculous. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, this is a good question for you. Can you move to Tulsa?
Not a chance. I'm a Southeast Oklahoma boy, born and raised. I'm staying in Southeast Oklahoma. Thank you very much.
The fishing's better down there.
Fishing's a lot better.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you can think of before we hop off of here today? Because you've been there. God love you. Oh, sorry, TIF. We forgot about that. Let me explain something really fast about the TIF. Okay. So Dorn, picture this. So Chandler says, I want this business to come in. And the business says, well, we're not going to locate here because it's more expensive than to locate over here. But if you give us a tax incentive, then we'll move there. Okay. So this tax increment financing is they carve out a section of Chandler where this business will be. And they'll say, okay, within this area, and they make up the rules as they go along, which is the other reason I hate a TIF, but their rules can say, well, we are not going to force anybody in this TIF area to pay ad valorem tax. So removed from having to pay property tax, and it's usually for a certain number of years. So for 15 years, the people in this area won't pay property tax anymore. But there are other taxes that they can work in. You don't have, or we'll give you this tax incentive for blah in this particular area. So it's a way of getting businesses to cities where a city doesn't want to support that business and the business can't support itself, but the Chamber of Commerce wants the business there because jobs. Did I say it well enough? I think I probably did. I think I got it.
That's probably pretty close. I mean, and the problem with a TIF is there's no guarantee after 5 years. So in 5 years, they don't have to pay the tax or whatever it is that they're doing. And then after that, what most of them doing, especially the wind facilities, and I figure we're going to see something similar out of some of the other storage facilities and things, but they can then in court go tie up what they're supposed to be paying in ad valorem taxes.
Oh, yes.
They just go tie it up. They do a protest in court and they'll just tie it up exponentially. We got to looking at it when we were talking about property taxes. And one of the things we were concerned about with property taxes is
Don't you love live TV? I think he probably lost the battery on his phone. I'm going to wait and see if he can come back in. But part of what he was talking about just now is the fact that Invenergy, who has the wind turbines, I mean, this was a pretty big deal, actually, but this is what he's talking about. So Invenergy, who is out in the Panhandle, that's primarily where they're located right now. Invenergy was originally, they came in and, oh, well, we're going to pay this much in ad valorem taxes. It's really going to help your schools. It's going to be absolutely fine, fabulous. You're just going to love this. Well, they did pay property taxes for some years, but then what ended up happening was after that, they did what Senator Bullard said, and they went in and then sued the schools to stop paying that property tax. So then the schools were like, well, wait a minute. I mean, you came in and you said one thing and then you turned around and did another thing. And that is a huge problem. And that's another reason why they sign these NDAs too, because you can get these things done, you know, under, although they probably didn't even sign. Well, I don't know. Who knows? But the point of the matter is this. Invenergy was paying that property tax, and then they went back and went, oh, we don't want to do that now, and then ended up suing them to take that back. So that is a huge problem. That's what he was going to say. Nothing like a surprise goodbye. And I'm trying to see if he's texted me, but I bet you $10 his phone died. And yes, repeal, absolutely, we're 100% for that. Here he comes. There he is. Did you? We were like, whoops.
Yeah, I guess somebody tried to call me and it kicked me out for some reason.
Well, tell people not to call you when you're on. So we were just talking about the fact that I was following up on what you had said, which was that Invenergy was the one who did that. Invenergy out in the Panhandle went back to the school and sued the school to get out of paying their property taxes. So yes, it's happened before. It's not even, I mean, can the city annex out and surround a wind farm project with a 1-foot border? I don't know.
I don't think that they could. I'd have to look at that and see. You know, we've been very careful on annexation abilities of towns because they abuse them.
Yeah, they do.
They probably could not, because they would have to have, it's kind of like eminent domain. You know, we've been fighting eminent domain for a long time too, because that's been abused so bad. They would have to have almost strict scrutiny to be able to show that they had a government need to be able to annex that land. So I don't know the answer to your question. I can look it up. If you'll email me and communicate with me through email, I'll see if I can get staff to look at it. But I don't know that they can do that or not. And here's the other thing, Dorn, can a city annex? They could probably try. How many city council men and women do you know that have the courage to go do something like that? Because they're going to get fought pretty hard by that wind energy facility. So I don't know if it's even a matter. Maybe the question isn't that can they, the question is, will they? And I don't think that they would. That's why state law, I think, is so important to say, if you're going to put a wind farm or an energy facility of any kind in or green energy facility in, then it has to go to a vote of the people of that county, and they have to decide.
My nacho says TIFs equal public-private partnerships, equal crony capitalism, equal picking winners and losers, which I think is pretty accurate, don't you?
Yeah, pretty accurate.
Yeah. All right. Well, so anything now so you can get off without just being kicked off. Is there anything else before we sign off for today?
No, I think that's about it. You know, there's a lot of people on here with questions, and they're asking good questions. That's not a bad thing. Just be sure, if you ever have questions about legislation, call the person running the bill and go sit down and talk with them. And I think you'll find out a lot more about what their intentions are by talking to them one-on-one.
And not getting it just off of Facebook.
Yeah, like I said, devil's playground.
Or, because I've had this happen too. I mean, there are some legislative assistants and who like to send out emails, and I don't always agree with those. So I think there's a little of that too. So you can get, because there's an appeal to authority there that I don't, necessarily like. And, if you're not willing to look it up for yourself, don't just take somebody else's word for it. I mean, that's part of the reason we're here. That's part of the reason why we do Rope Report, because we don't want you just taking, we want to go to the source as much as we can. So we appreciate you so much, Senator.
My pleasure.
I thank you so much, and everybody's very thankful that you take time out of your schedule to do these talks
anytime
with us, and that, I think going down that bill really helped make a difference.
Yep.
And we appreciate your transparency and you're willing to be accountable.
Yep. No, my pleasure. Anytime. Hold me accountable anytime. I don't mind arguing, and I don't mind being wrong.
Well, and it's not, sometimes it's not even arguing. Sometimes it's just
asking questions.
Yeah. Honestly, because arguing has gotten a bad rap, and you
Well,
don't have to scream at each other to, have an argument.
My grandfather, who had a 9th grade education, who is the smartest man I've ever met to this day, he taught me from a very early age. He said, smart people ask questions, and memorizing doesn't mean a thing. Smart people ask questions. That's what he used to always tell me. If you're trying to figure something out, ask questions about it. And so that's the main thing. Just stop and talk to us. Now, there are some out there that you need to be questioning the legislatures and the legislators and their intent and the kingdoms that they're building for themselves. But man, I'll tell you this, especially in the Senate, we have got a core group of people that are really what they said they are on a push card in your mailbox. They're really good. That number's growing. We got to continue to grow that number.
Well, and not my nacho says 9th grade of yesteryear is better than today's bachelor degree, which and then made it again. Senator Bullard for Senate Pro Tem. All right. Well, Senator, we sure do appreciate you. And thank you so much for being with us today. And everybody, thank you for watching. You guys did a great job with your questions and your comments. And you got 2 good comments to go after today for that bill to kind of, help that bill. One from John and then one from me about trying to find somebody in the SOS office, to really watch and pay attention to those people who are doing the initiative petition process. So, all right. Good to see you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We will be with you again next Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. until, I think so. Yes, next Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. We'll be here with you and live, and we will see you then. Have a great weekend.